Tonight, I'm diving into some of the scariest cemetery true horror stories that are guaranteed to haunt your dreams. Let's see if you can handle them without jumping out of your seat. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and comment where you are watching from to help us grow the channel. I'll never forget the night I stepped inside Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. People in my town always whispered about it, said it was cursed, that spirits walked among the graves. But I didn't believe any of that, not until I saw it for myself. It was the summer of 1999. I was 17. My friends dared me to go in after midnight and bring back proof, just a stupid game. I didn't want to be the coward of the group, so I climbed over that rusted gate with only a flashlight and a cheap disposable camera. The second my feet hit the ground, I knew I'd made a mistake. The air felt heavy, wrong. The night was so still, even the crickets were silent. It was like the whole world was holding its breath. As I walked deeper in, my flashlight beam fell across broken headstones, half sunken into the ground. Some were vandalized, shattered, forgotten. But it wasn't the graves that unnerved me. It was the shadows. They didn't move when my light passed over them. Some stretched long across the dirt. Others seemed to twitch and shift like they had a life of their own. I stopped at a grave from the 1800s, raised my camera, and snapped a picture. When the flash went off, my heart nearly stopped. For a split second, I swear I saw her, a woman in a pale dress, standing just beside the stone. Her face was blurred, glowing, almost translucent. I spun around, but there was no one there. The night was empty, still. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the camera. I should have left right then, but something pulled me deeper. That's when I saw it, the old farmhouse. It wasn't supposed to be there. Everyone in town said it was long gone, burned to the ground. Yet there it was, glowing faintly between the trees. I crept closer. Its windows glowed with a dim yellow light, and I swear I heard faint voices coming from inside. I reached out my hand to touch the wall, and the entire house vanished into mist. 1 second it was there, the next, nothing but trees. Trying to calm myself, I wandered toward the edge of the cemetery, where the pond was. People whispered about it being a dumping ground for bodies decades ago. I thought it was just an old legend. But when my flashlight hit the surface, I froze. Faces, dozens of pale, lifeless faces, stared up at me from beneath the water. Hollow eyes, open mouths, floating just below the ripples. I stumbled back in horror, and that's when bubbles broke the surface, like something or someone was trying to claw its way out. Then I heard it. At first, it sounded like the breeze through the trees, but there was no wind. The whispers grew louder, circling me, surrounding me. Some were crying, others were screaming, and one of them was laughing. I realized the voices weren't coming from the air. They were rising from the graves themselves. My flashlight flickered and died. The darkness swallowed me whole. That's when I felt it. A rush of icy air brushed against my skin. Something cold and bony grazed my arm, like skeletal fingers trying to drag me down. I bolted. I ran through the cemetery, stumbling over broken stones, hearing footsteps behind me. When I looked back, there was nothing, but the laughter followed me. It was right in my ear, mocking, chasing me to the gate. When I finally leapt over that rusted gate, it all stopped. The voices, the footsteps, the laughter, it all went silent. My friends laughed and cheered, but I collapsed to the ground, shaking, drenched in sweat. They thought I was just scared, just overreacting, but I knew what I felt. I knew what I heard. The next day I got the photos developed. Most were blurry, dark, meaningless, but 2 of them made my blood run cold. In one, standing just behind me, was the woman in white, clear as day. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale, her hands reaching. In another, barely visible, was a skeletal hand breaking through the dirt, inches from my leg. I never spoke of that night again, but sometimes when the world is quiet, when I'm lying awake in the dark, I swear I can still hear those whispers, calling my name. And I know, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery didn't let me leave. It just let me go, for now. I should have never gone to Stull Cemetery. It was the fall of 2002, just a few weeks before Halloween. Everyone in Lawrence, Kansas had heard the stories, how Stull was cursed, how the devil himself was said to appear there twice a year. I thought it was all local folklore, but that night, I found out just how real the legends were. I pulled up just after midnight. The old church ruins stood like a jagged skeleton against the moonlight, the crumbling walls and roof long collapsed. The cemetery around it was small but ancient, headstones dating back to the 1850s. Some were broken, others leaning, swallowed by weeds. The moment I stepped inside, the wind died. No sound, no insects, just silence. It felt wrong, like something was watching. Before going, a friend had warned me, "Don't stay past midnight. Don't step inside the church. And whatever you do, don't go near the walnut tree." That tree had a reputation. They said it was where witches were hanged in the 1800s and where strange rituals had been carried out ever since. Some even claimed the tree covered the hidden stairway, the one that supposedly led straight to hell. I laughed when I heard it, but standing there with the moon casting twisted shadows across that gnarled tree, I wasn't laughing anymore. I crept toward the stone church. Locals said it had no floor, that if you stepped inside, you'd be standing over an endless pit. My flashlight cut across the broken stones, and that's when I saw them. Faint symbols carved into the walls, pentagrams, strange markings I didn't recognize. I snapped a photo, and the moment I did, the beam of my flashlight flickered, then went out. The darkness pressed in. I swear I could hear breathing, slow, steady, but not my own. I turned to leave, but that's when I heard it. Whispers, dozens of voices, murmuring, echoing around me. Some sounded close, others far away. My chest tightened, my heart racing. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, until they became screams. I stumbled back toward the walnut tree, and when I looked up, I froze. There was a figure hanging from the branch, rope swinging, body limp. I blinked, and it was gone. The branch was empty, but the rope burn remained, etched deep into the bark. The ground trembled beneath my feet. At first, I thought it was an earthquake, but then I heard it, a deep, guttural growl rising from beneath the earth. The grass near the walnut tree began to shift, dirt crumbling into a small sinkhole. I swear to you, I saw stairs, old stone steps, descending into darkness, and from that pit came the stench of sulfur and rot. I couldn't move. It was like the ground itself was holding me there, dragging me toward the opening. I tore myself free and ran, weaving between gravestones. That's when I saw them. Shadows, dozens of them, standing among the graves. Tall, thin shapes with no faces, just pure blackness. They didn't move, didn't chase. They just watched. My breath turned to frost, even though the night was warm. I felt their eyes, if they even had eyes, burning into me. They say the church's bell tower collapsed decades ago. No bell had hung there since the 1920s. But as I reached the cemetery gate, it rang. One deafening toll that shook the ground and echoed through the valley. The sound rattled my bones. My ears rang. And with that toll, the whispers returned, louder than ever, screaming, laughing, mocking. I sprinted to my car, gravel flying under my shoes. As I slammed the door shut, something scraped across the back window, like claws dragging against the glass. The engine wouldn't start. I turned the key again and again, panic clawing at my throat. Behind me, in the rearview mirror, I saw them. The shadows lining the cemetery fence, unmoving, waiting. Finally, the car roared to life. I sped down the dirt road, the cemetery shrinking behind me. But the ringing, the tolling of that bell, it followed me for miles. The next morning I went back in daylight, thinking maybe I had imagined it all. But when I got there, the walnut tree was gone. Completely gone. Not cut down, not burned. Just an empty patch of dirt where it had stood for over 100 years. I asked a local farmer about it, and he paled. "That tree's been gone for decades," he told me. "A storm took it down in the 70s. Ain't been there since. But I know what I saw. I know where I stood. That night, the tree was there. And so was something else. People still say Stull Cemetery is one of the 7 gateways to hell. That if you stand there on the spring equinox or Halloween, you'll see the devil himself. I don't know if that's true, but I do know this. I went there once, and I'll never go back. Because every now and then, when the night is too quiet, I still hear that bell tolling, and it's getting closer." I've been obsessed with cemeteries my whole life, not out of disrespect, but out of fascination. Each name carved into stone is a story that once lived, breathed, and then vanished. But there's one night I'll never forget. The night that nearly broke me, when I realized cemeteries aren't just places for the dead. It was October 27th, 2019, just days before Halloween, when I made the mistake of sneaking into Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois. People around Chicago know it well, most for the urban legend of Resurrection Mary, the vanishing hitchhiker. I thought it would be fun to test the legend myself, walk these cemetery roads at night, maybe catch something strange on camera. I parked half a mile down the road around 11:45 p.m. The moon was high, but clouds dragged over it, and the air was cold enough that every breath looked like smoke. I climbed the fence and dropped into the cemetery, flashlight in hand. The gravel crunched under my boots, louder than I expected in the dead silence. The first thing I noticed? The air inside the cemetery didn't match the outside. It was still, heavy, as if I'd stepped into a sealed room. I walked past rows of graves, some polished and new, others leaning and cracked from age. Angels with weather-worn faces stared down at me, their eyes eaten by erosion. Every few minutes I thought I heard movement behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing. At one point, I aimed my flashlight toward the far road. That's when I saw her, just for a second. A girl in a pale dress, walking between the graves, maybe 50 yards ahead. My heart jumped and I whispered, half nervous, half laughing, "Mary." But when I blinked, she was gone. I kept moving, deeper in. At the center of a Resurrection Cemetery is a large mausoleum built in the 1960s. Its bronze doors reflected my light. They were locked, but something about that building made my stomach twist. I pressed my ear against the cold metal, and I swear on my life, I heard scratching from inside. Slow, deliberate, not the scurrying of an animal. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. The scratching stopped, then silence. Around 1 a.m., I reached the statue of Christ near the back of the cemetery. The moment I stepped closer, the wind picked up out of nowhere. My flashlight flickered, dimmed, and I froze. That's when I heard it. A voice, a woman's voice, whispering, my name. I spun around. Nothing. I felt something cold brush past me, like someone's sleeve sliding against mine. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd collapse right there. I decided I had enough. I turned back toward the front gate, practically jogging down the gravel path. That's when I saw it again. The girl. this time clearer. A pale dress, hair hanging dark and wet around her shoulders. She was standing near the cemetery gate, facing me. I stopped in my tracks. My body wanted to run, but my legs locked. She raised one arm and slowly pointed, not at me, but behind me. I forced myself to turn. There was nothing, only graves. But in that empty space, I felt the crushing certainty that something was watching me from the dark. When I turned back, the girl was gone. I didn't think, I just ran. By the time I reached the fence, my chest was burning, my legs shaking. I climbed, scraped my palms raw, and didn't stop running until I reached my car. The moment I shut the door, my phone buzzed with a notification. 2:12 a.m. I checked the camera I'd been recording with the whole night. Every single file was corrupted. Every one, static, black screens, warped sounds like groaning. I drove home that night, and I swore I'd never set foot in Resurrection Cemetery again. But here's the thing. For weeks after, every time I passed a mirror, I swore I caught a flash of white behind me, a pale figure. And once, only once, I woke up around 3 a.m. to see a wet handprint on my bedroom window.